Okay, here's your homework for tonight. It is due on Monday, October 5th. Um, However, you also have a quiz on that day, so if you want to ask questions about the material, it'd be good if you could work on it for tomorrow, which would be Friday, October 2nd, and ask me any questions then. On Monday, we're going to take the quiz, and there's not going to be any time for you to ask questions. So if you hand it in, that'd be great. But if there's something you don't understand over the weekend, I'm not going to have a chance to go over it before the quiz. So take a second, write down these questions here. Let me get this out of the way. Write down these questions. Just perform the indicated operation and simplify. I am going to go over a couple of them, not sure which ones at this point. So write them down and work on them and come back and see if you got the ones right that I go over. All right? Okay, decide to go over number one. So let's look at number one here. As I look at it, we realize this is a complex fraction, one of those complex fractions that we have been talking about. But remember, a fraction, this line means divide. And if you remember what we did with dividing, then this is really not going to be that difficult. So what I'm going to do is make sure there's no addition and subtraction on the top or bottom, because if there was, I'd want to deal with that first. And there isn't. You have one fraction on the top, one fraction on the bottom. So I'm going to rewrite this as x squared minus 1 all over 3x plus 2. That's my top here. And then I'm going to write them side by side with a division sign instead of on top of one another. So it's going to be x plus 1 divided by 3x squared minus x minus 2. All right. So if you look at this, the next step you'd want to do at this point is flip and multiply. We've talked over and over again about how you divide fractions. We've gone through examples in class of why you do it. But for right now, just remember the rule. You keep the first fraction, change this to multiplication, and flip this fraction. All right, so we're going to have x squared minus 1 all over 3x plus 2 times 3x squared minus x minus 2 all over x plus 1. So we have that. Next thing you're going to want to do is see if you can factor. So it looks like we can factor this. That's the difference of two perfect squares. So I'm going to have x plus 1 and x minus 1 all over 3x plus 2. And that's going to be times. Now, can I factor this top one? Well, it's got no greatest common factor. There are three terms there, and there is a number in front of the x squared. So this is where it gets a little bit more tricky on factoring. So I'm going to bring that over here, 3x squared minus x minus 2. If you were there for factoring when we did it probably 2 weeks ago, there's a method you could use called slide and divide. So we slide this over, multiply it by that. We end up with x squared minus x minus 6. Then we factor your resulting trinomial, which would end up being x minus 3 times x plus 2. Remember, you're looking for the numbers that multiply to give you negative 6 and add up to a negative 1. Those are negative 3 and positive 2. But when you use slide and divide, the last part of it is always to divide by the a value, or the one you multiplied by in the beginning, which was the 3. So I need to multiply this number in one of our factors and this number and simplify. So this is going to be x minus 1. And this is simplified 2 over 3. So if it is simplified and you still have a number in the denominator, you slide that over. That'll be 3x, keep the 2, those are your factors. All right, so we just factored this, and now it's this. Now we might be able to cancel. Well, we had it right here, can't cancel that. All separated by subtraction, subtraction. Well, here we have two factors separated by multiplication. So I'm going to rewrite that over here as x minus 1. Incidentally, if you want to check to see if this factoring is correct, just multiply it out. I just did this and I did it quickly. So if you see a mistake, you just multiply it out and say, I don't think that's right. And we have our x minus 1, or x plus 1, right? Okay, so let me cross more of that off. All right, remember, you can cancel top with bottom. It doesn't matter where the top is, where the bottom, it can be a cross, but you cannot do top with top. So here, before we multiply, we can cancel this. That'll just give us 1, because anything over itself is 1. Then you have your 3x plus 2. That's just 1. So we're left with 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 1. So we can write that as, a number of ways we can write that. I'll show a couple. We can write that as x minus 1 times x minus 1. And there's actually nothing left down the bottom except for 1, so we don't even have to write that. So you could write it like this. Or you could write it like this, x minus 1 squared. If you really felt like multiplying it out, that would give you x squared minus 1x minus another 1x, so minus 2x plus 1, right? Because negative 1 times negative 1. So I wouldn't do that. That's a little more work than you need to do, but they are all equivalent, and any one of them would be acceptable. So that's your first one. Okay, I'm going to go over number 4 also. I decided, no particular reason. I just thought number 4 was one that was a little bit different. So, as you look at this, we still have a complex fraction, but the bottom seems to be a little bit less complex. It's not a fraction at the bottom, but there is a fraction up top, so I want to deal with that. Plus, you're dealing with a minus up there, so you want to do that subtraction first. Remember, you always want to do that first. So I'm going to deal with that alone. So I'm going to write that over here. Don't have a common denominator. Erase that. We're going to have x plus 5. And minus 3 over x. So this is all dealing with the top of this fraction. Okay, we need a common denominator. What you could do, in this case, when you have a binomial over here, what x plus 5 is, and you have just a monomial with the x, a good, easy way to do it is just multiply them by each other. So my greatest common factor could just be x times x plus 5. It's no need to multiply them out. You can just write it like this. Matter of fact, it'd be easier if you just kept it like this. And over here, x times x minus 5. Plus 5, sorry. All right, now you look here. What's the missing factor to get this denominator to be like this? Well, it's missing the x. So I just need to multiply all of this by x over x, right? So that'll give me the x times x minus 5, which is here. And then on top, you're just going to get 4x squared because you're multiplying the x and the 4x. All right, over on the other side, what am I going to do to this to get this? Well, I need to multiply by the missing factor, which is x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply everything by x plus 5. X plus 5. All right, so the top is going to be 3x plus 15. All right, now I have my common factor. Remember, we're still only dealing with the top now. So I'm going to have 4x squared minus. Now be careful. When you have a minus, you have to distribute that minus here and here when it's a minus. So when it's a minus, you got to be careful. So it's going to be minus 3x. It is as if you're multiplying it by negative 1. So we're going to have negative 3x minus 15. All right, so we have all that. So that's okay, and we have our common denominator of x times x plus 5. Again, that's just the top. So we just dealt with the top. So we just have, now we have one fraction, which is good. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this now as 4x squared minus 3x minus 15 over x times x plus 5. All of that over 4x squared minus 3x minus 15. Whoa, that seems like the same thing as the top, so that's probably going to mean something. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and now take this. I'm going to write this as 4x squared minus 3x minus 15 over x times x plus 5. And I'm going to write it side by side, divided by 4x squared minus 3x minus 15. Now, you might be tempted to start factoring, but I would not factor, and you can't cancel until you actually begin multiplying. But I would wait to do all that till I got it in multiplication form. So it's going to be 4x squared minus 3x minus 15 all over x times x plus 5. And that's times, now remember, this is over 1. So I have to do times 4x squared minus 3x minus 15. And very nicely, we have the canceling out of this entire thing goes to 1. So 1 times 1 is equal to 1. And on the bottom, we have x times x plus 5. And that's it. And again, I went through that quick, so if you see any mistakes, please let me know. And if you have any questions, come and ask tomorrow in class.